We are about to take a look back at a fire from June 1991, took place here in Saginaw, Michigan, which brought to ruins the historic Fordney Hotel. And this is the story of that fire. The historic 125-year-old Fordney Hotel slammed toward the ground in a thundering crash Thursday, catching Saginaw firefighter Art Trevino and throwing him to the pavement in a cloud of debris, thick smoke, and fire. As Trevino rolled from flames whipping in the air behind him, Saginaw Sheriff's Deputy Mark Garabelli and Detective John A. Dankert ran to him, then pulled the injured firefighter to safety. "It was like a tidal wave with the water sloshing," Gabrielli said. "There was no warning that the building was coming down. Firemen were running everywhere. The building crushed on the cars. It scared the hell out of me. I didn't think. I just ran to help him because I didn't think he was going to make it." Trevino suffered a minor ankle injury, and 6 other firefighters suffered heat exhaustion. All were treated at Saginaw hospitals. Almost as quickly as the pummeling wall overtook Trevino, Thursday's blaze in Old Saginaw engulfed 3 buildings and sent residents and business owners scurrying for safety. Investigators continued to search the rubble today for the cause of the blaze, which firefighters believe started in the rear second or third story of the Fordney Hotel. They have not ruled out arson. Firefighters poured water on the smoldering ruins through the night and into the day, said Fire Chief Richard J. Hoffman. A crane stood by to start knocking down walls, tilting on piles of bricks. No damage estimate was available. The blaze destroyed 11 apartments at 407 and a half Court, the Corset Shop, 409 Court, Wally's Old Fashioned Sandwich Shop, 411 Court, Pat's Hallmark Cards and Gifts, 413 Court, Paul's Men's Store, 415 Court, and the Pioneer Club, 417 Court, as well as Childhood Memories, 419 Court, and Saginaw Act 21 or 421 Court. When Saginaw firefighters arrived at the hotel, 401 Court, at about 10:30 a.m., only puffs of smoke billowed out of 2 second-story windows. Firefighters started breaking the hotel's windows for ventilation, but couldn't get the hotel sprinkler system started, Hoffman said. Owners closed the hotel in 1989, and minutes later the fire raced through the vacant building, crashed through the roof, and sent flames 40 feet in the air and smoke 1,500 feet skyward. 7 hours later, the 400 block of Court, from the Fordney to the beginning of the Ippel building, lay in ruins. More than 100 people were whisked from apartments and businesses, carrying family possessions, pets, and store merchandise from the oncoming flames. Police evacuated the entire block and all neighboring businesses as hundreds of spectators clamored around the scene to watch history burn to the ground. Businesses and streets were closed today in the 400 block of Court, 100 block of South Hamilton, and 100 block of Michigan. We tried to make stands at each building, but the fire was just too much. We had to pull back, said Assistant Chief Donald P. Cortrier. The fire spread through the attics and kept spreading faster. Firefighters made a defensive line at the building next to the Fordney and the Pioneer Club before stopping the blaze at the third fire line at the Ippel building, Hoffman said. About 125 firefighters from Saginaw, Buena Vista, Saginaw Township, and Richland Township attacked the fire with at least 25 trucks, Hoffman said. 13 fire departments fought the fire or supported the effort. Firefighters from Bay City manned the stations in Saginaw in case of additional blazes, Hoffman said. Heat, fatigue, and a fierce wind played against firefighters trying to save the businesses next to the Fordney. Firefighters with heat exhaustion from the blaze and 89-degree temperatures wrapped their heads with wet towels and poured ice water on themselves. "It makes you feel tired all over," said Lieutenant Robert M. Collison as he wiped away perspiration and gulped a cold drink. "Everything you do slower." After the back of the Fordney collapsed, the front soon followed, leaving only a chimney stack standing against the black cloud of smoke blocking the sun. "It was just a small fire at the beginning, and it collapsed, and it really sounded like thunder coming down," said Michael Rittenberry, Vice President of Dukas Equipment, 118 South Michigan. A few feet away, on the top of the Arden and Whitney Flowers, 124 South Michigan, a man watered down the roof with a garden hose until firefighters told him he had to leave the building. Flying embers started 5 small roof fires at neighboring businesses, which were quickly doused by the firefighters. One ember sparked some boxes behind Old Town Furniture at 418 Hancock. We wanted to save all the buildings, Collison said. We tried to stop it at each building, but we kept having to move back. We had to go on the defensive. Firefighters finally stopped the blitzing blaze as it hit the Ipple building, using 3 distribution nozzles, each of which drowned the roof with 250 gallons of water per minute. Firefighters saved the Ipple building. Hoffman said, "We fought with an interior attack, but the fire kept gaining on us rather than we on it. We had to retreat, and we always seemed to get out of the building just as it collapsed." Then you realize how close you were. Members of the Salvation Army and the American Red Cross set up aid stations with emergency medical technicians, giving firefighters cool drinks and a place to rest. McDonald's restaurants and 7-Eleven stores donated hamburgers, fries, and drinks to the firefighters and support personnel at the scene. "We will be here until they are finished," said Salvation Army Captain Edward L. Mitchell. Relief workers also set up temporary shelters at the First Presbyterian Church at 121 South Harrison and City Rescue Mission of Saginaw at 1021 Burt for displaced residents. However, only 4 people sought refuge, and they were placed at the Knights Inn at 1403 South Outer Drive. About 15 people stopped by the shelter and were given comfort kits, said Jack W. Sherheim, chairman of the Disaster Action Team Committee for the American Red Cross. The blaze also caused Second National Bank officials to close their West Side branch at 400 Court. Customers' deposits and safe deposit box possessions are safe, a bank spokeswoman said. The items are in a secured fireproof vault that was unharmed by the intense heat and smoke from the blaze. The branch office will reopen at 9 a.m. Monday, she said. Fire investigators also found 12 cases of illegal Class C fireworks, including Saturn missile batteries, Toot and Twirls, and Whistling Moon Travelers. The investigators seized the fireworks, which are banned in Michigan, from an apartment in the Ipple building, said Fire Marshal Wayne Sylvester. If the fire would have reached it, we would have had heard and saw quite a display, said Sylvester, who plans to file misdemeanor charges against the owner of the fireworks. But it wouldn't have really affected the fire unless we had men in the building. A second story that ran in the same edition of the Saginaw News is headlined, "Fordney Fire Pales to Blazes of the Past. Heart of the City Burned 98 Years Ago." And Sue White's story goes, Thursday's Fordney Hotel fire, which destroyed 3 buildings and left more than 100 people homeless, was only a flicker of a flame compared to the Great Blaze of 1893. That fire ate the heart out of Saginaw. 257 buildings in a 23-block radius were destroyed. 12 million board feet of prime lumber went up in smoke. It was Saturday, May 20th, and high winds were blowing up dust on Saginaw's unpaved streets. About 3:50 p.m., the fire bell started ringing, and smoke hung over Ojibway Island. A spark had fallen in sawdust at the Sample and Camp Mill there, and the winds carried the first blaze to a nearby pile of Michigan pine, 700,000 board feet of it. From there, the race was on, flames carrying along Water Street, up Washington, and down Franklin and Jefferson, and it stopped at Emerson. More by the shift in the wind than by the firefighters' efforts, and for the next few hours slowly destroyed downtown Saginaw. It wasn't the first time flames put Saginaw to the test, and it certainly wasn't the last. About 9 a.m. July 6, 1906, Saginaw's first dry cleaning establishment, Cossonday Cleaning and Dye Works at 113 North Jefferson, was rocked into oblivion by a gasoline tank explosion. 3 men, Louis Cassandia and George Segleco, both 24, and Edward J. Fowle, 23, died immediately. Earl Norris and John F. and Carl Casadena all died later from injuries received in the fire. The tragedy prodded the city into into enacting its fire laws, especially those governing the storage of gasoline in heavily populated areas. The Academy of Music at 207 East Genesee sang its swan song April 17, 1917, when fire reduced the building to a pile of bricks and plaster. Earlier that same day, 1,200 schoolchildren attended a performance of the Humpty Dumpty Circus. It was empty when a passerby noticed the flicker of flames inside the window. The cause of the blaze was never determined. 13 businesses were destroyed and 35 people made homeless when a fire started underneath the Schmellizer and Schmeierheim stores on March 9, 1929 at Hamilton Square. Flames spread through the basement corridors, a honeycomb running under the block, and firefighters lost precious time as they searched for the source of the smoke. A few years later, the same lack of concern allowed a fire at City Hall to take hold. It was April 9, 1935, and a passerby noticed smoke curling out of the top floor dormer. 4 hours later, only the leering gargoyles were left. Irreplaceable records and documents were destroyed. School children clustered around South Washington's high school November 11, 1953, with wide smiles on their faces. A few feet away, firefighters were battling a blaze that meant an extended vacation to the Saginaw children. 3 weeks later, on December 4, 1953, fire broke out still again, and parents refused to return their children to the school that they considered to be dangerous. And in February of 1954, the building was razed. More recently, Saginaw's historical heritage took another blow when arsonists set fire at the 110-year-old Potter Street Station, April 16, 1991. Renovators still hope to find the time and funds to restore the landmark. And that's the story of the Fordney fire and some of the fires of the past here in Saginaw, Michigan. Hope you found it interesting. Have a great evening, and God bless.